Assets only, no liabilities.
I was on a podcast just a few days ago, and one of the first questions the host asked me was that if I was starting back at zero and somebody gave me $10,000 for free and I had to turn this $10,000 into $100,000 or $1 million, what is the best way for me to do that? And I'm going to break that down in this video step by step. And step number one is just to understand what are the different options that I have, and I'll show you what I would do. The different options, the 4 different options that you have to turn your $10,000 into $100,000. And number one is keep saving your way to $100,000. The same way you save the $10,000, you can keep saving your way to $100,000. Number 2 is you can invest your way to $100,000. You can save the $10,000, maybe some more money, and work to grow that money like that. Number 3 is you can work to earn your way to $100,000. How can you increase your income by another $100,000 that we can easily put aside another $100,000? And number 4 is how you can build your way to $100,000 or even $1 million, which is building something yourself, creating something, having that value of $100,000 or more, or having this thing that is going to produce you an extra $100,000 a year. This is where you're going to get a lot of meat of it. But let me start by talking about just how long each one of these things will take to put it in perspective. If you have the ability to save an additional $1,000 a month, I know that's a lot of money, but if you can save an additional $1,000 a month, it's going to take you 90 more months to go from $10,000 to $100,000, which means this saving it is going to take you 7.5 years, assuming that you can save $1,000 a month. But what if now, instead of you just saving this money and letting it sit there, you're investing this money? You take this $10,000, you put it into the markets, and you can get an average 10% return on your money. Well, if we assume that you're not going to invest any more money in there, it's just this $10,000 that you have invested, and it can grow by 10% a year, it's going to take you 24.5 years before you can turn that $10,000 into $100,000. That is way too long for me. So what if now, instead of you just putting that $10,000 into the markets, you take the $10,000, you put it into the markets, but then you also put some more money in there. So you put the $10,000 in as kind of your seed investment, and then every month you're taking the $1,000 that you were saving here, and you also invest that money into your markets as well. So you start with $10,000 and now you're investing $1,000 every month, and now your money can grow by 10% a year. In this case, it will take you about 5.5 years to turn this $10,000 into $100,000. These two are the most interesting. So let me start talking about earning it. How can you earn your way to $100,000 a year, or adding an additional $100,000 a year to your salary? Now this one is going to require work on your time side, because this might require a career change. I don't know what job you have right now, because somebody watching this is going to be a YouTuber, somebody watching this is going to be an architect, somebody watching this is going to be a doctor, somebody watching this is going to be an engineer, somebody watching this is not going to have any clue what they want to do in their life. Okay, so how long is it going to take for you to go out and start earning your first $100,000, or to add on an additional $100,000 in your career? It's going to depend. But I would say, on average, if you have kind of a decent job, let's say you're making $50,000, $60,000 a year, and you want to grow from that to $110,000 a year, you could do that with the right effort, with the right education, with the right direction, in somewhere between 1 to 3 years, if this is something you're really putting your focus on. The problem is most people don't actually put their focus on this the right way. They just kind of go about in the same career, and they don't really care about their income. They don't worry about advancing in their career. I'll talk about how you can do this a little bit later in this video. And then option number 4 is how you can build it. Now this is you going out and building something on your own, building your own business, building your own value, building your own side hustle that's going to produce this income. Here you're earning it in somebody else's company. Now when you're trying to build it, the difficult part about this is the first $1,000 is the most difficult, and earning that first $1,000 could take you 2 years by itself. Now, when you scale from 1,000 to 10,000, that's also pretty difficult, because now you have to scale what you did to earn your first $1,000, and then scaling from 10,000 to 100,000 is redoing what you did to get to the first $10,000. Now, the interesting thing about this is it could take you 2 years to go from $0 to $1,000, and then just 1 more year to go from $1,000 to $100,000. So this one, I'm going to put a big question mark, because some people are going to be able to build a $100,000 business in 6 months. Some people it's going to take 6 years. There's a huge range as to what it takes here, but it's also going to take the most work, but it also comes with the most upside potential. So let me now go into number 2. How can you invest your way to $100,000? Because the biggest concern that a lot of people have is, well, I have this money. It took me a long time to put aside this $10,000. It took a lot of work to put aside this $10,000. I don't want to lose it. And if I put this money in the stock market tomorrow, what happens if the stock market crashes? So what can I do now to invest this money with the least risk possible, to continue to see that growth, to get to the $100,000 through my investments in also the fastest way possible. See, it's kind of a difficult answer to answer here, but the way that you can do this is by understanding, number one, how do most people lose money in the markets, and then number two, not do that thing. Because the reason why most people end up losing money in the markets is because number one, they don't know what to buy, and number two, they don't know when to buy it. So what people end up doing is they try to find the next Amazon, the next Tesla, the next Nvidia, and what they do is they buy it when they hear everybody talking about it on Reddit or the internet. But when you're buying things based off of what you're hearing on the news or what you're hearing on the internet, you've already missed that trend. And this is where now I want you to take a step back a little bit and understand that real wealth, especially if you're not going to be devoting a lot of time and energy and research, is not going to be through trying to find the next hot stock. It's just by investing your money in the markets. Because if you take a look at the stock market over the last 100 years, what you'll see is that the stock market has gone through booms and busts. But despite the booms and busts, the stock market is higher today than what it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 50 years ago. And this is where, if you can just invest your money into the markets, you can lower some of that risk, because now you're not investing your money in one company. Because now if you invest your money into the next Bed Bath & Beyond or into the next Sears, you're investing your way into bankruptcy, which is not what you want to do. And number two is you can make this more passive. I'll give you a couple examples. I'm not telling you what to invest in, I'm just giving a few examples. So there is an ETF out there called VTI. This gives you exposure to the total stock market. It's created by a fund manager called Vanguard, one of the largest fund managers out there. This is called an ETF, and if you invest in this ticker symbol, VTI, pretty much every brokerage will allow you to invest in this. You're essentially investing into the total stock market, into all the stocks out there that trade on the United States stock market. So now you're just getting exposure to all the companies that are publicly traded. Another option is you can invest in a fund like SPY. SPY is created by a fund manager called Spider, SPDR. This is a fund that gives you exposure to the S&P 500. That means it's a group of the 500 largest companies on the stock market. You're investing into the total stock market. You're investing into the biggest 500 companies in the stock market. And now, what you're doing is you're just investing your money into the broader market, and now you're going to let the market do its thing. Now, there's a couple ways to go by doing this. You could take all $10,000, throw it all in there today. You could take the $10,000, throw it all in there today, and then invest $1,000 a month. You could take part of the $10,000, throw it in there today, and just keep throwing more money into these funds every single month. That way you're doing this thing called dollar cost averaging, DCA, because nobody knows what the stock market is going to be doing next week, next month, or next year. The stock market goes up and it goes down. The mistake that so many people make is that when it goes down, instead of buying, they're selling. And when it goes up, instead of selling, they're buying. And so this is where, now when you have this type of passive investing strategy, I want you to remember this acronym, CPA. This is how you win. CPA in this context is not your personal doing your taxes. It's a consistent, passive, and automatic investing strategy. What that means is now you want this to be consistent, whether it's every week, every 2 weeks, or every month. It's going to keep passively being invested, and this is going to happen automatically. And what I mean by automatically is you don't turn this off when the market's down. You don't turn it on when the markets are up. You just let it do its thing, whether the market's up, whether the market's down, whether the market's sideways. You CPA. You let this do its thing no matter what. There's a lot of brokerages out there that allow you to do this, where every week or every 2 weeks or every month, money is automatically pulled out of your checking account and it's invested into your funds, whether it's index funds, mutual funds, ETFs. I'm not going to go into the differences between these three on this video. I have other videos on my channel where I've already broken those things down. But the whole idea here is, instead of you trying to find the next hot stock, you're just putting your money into the markets and you're trying to get the average returns. That way you can lower the risk and make it more passive on your side. Now, when you want to grow to that $10,000, you got to remember that getting the initial traction going is the most difficult part, because getting a 10% return on the $10,000 is a $1,000 growth. Not a lot of money, but a 10% return on $100,000 is a $10,000 return. And a 10% return on $1 million is $100,000. So you can start to see that the more money you invest, the faster you can see more dollar returns. I mean, if you had $1 million today and you put it into the markets and you could see a 10% return, you've already made the $100,000 in just 1 year by getting a 10% return. But now what you're trying to do is you're trying to actively grow it, and this is where it takes time, but also the more dollars that you invest, the faster you can see more dollars enter your account as markets grow. And this is where it's also important for you to work on the third thing that I want to talk about, which is how you can earn more money so you have more money to be invested. If you want to go from a $50,000 a year salary to a $100,000 a year salary, it might not happen in the job that you're at. and it might not happen in the career that you're at within the time that you're looking to do it. Maybe it'll happen in the next 10, 15 years, but if you want it to happen in the next 5 years, you're going to have to take more active action. And that means you're going to have to start learning how you can change your careers, change your jobs, that way you can increase your income. Now, the first thing that you can do is just look at different companies to see if there are other companies out there that are willing to pay you more money. That way you can grow how much money you're making. But if you still don't see the upside potential to take you to the $100,000, to take you to the $115,000, whatever it is that you want to go, then you're going to have to start thinking about a different career. Now, again, this is not for everybody. But if you really want to make more money, you're going to have to devote your time, energy, and money into learning how to do this. So now you got $10,000 sitting there, and you want to now figure out how I can make an additional or your first $100,000 a year through your career. But now the question is, how can you learn a skill that will teach you how to do that? Especially if you're not an entrepreneur, you got to have a real skill that you can sell to a business showing that, hey, I am good at tech sales. I am good at this thing that has the ability to earn me a six-figure salary. And that means you got to start looking at some of the different careers out there and start investing and learning this thing. Because if you don't want to go back to college, the next best thing is to get a certification online. That way you can learn a real skill that can earn you more money. One of the places they can check out is our sponsor, Course Careers, because they have a whole bunch of different offerings, a bunch of courses that you can take at an affordable price that will give you a certification. That way you can go out and qualify for a higher paying job. If you want to learn more about that, I got their link down in the description below. But what I also want you to do is, as you're starting to get more skills, I also want you to invest in your experience. Because the problem that a lot of people make is they rely so heavily on a piece of paper, this degree, the certification, this paper that says, hey, I'm skilled because this piece of paper says that I'm skilled. But what employers want, I'm telling you this as an employer, is they want to see experience. They want to see real life understanding of how to do this thing. And you're going to say, well, Jaspreet, if I go out and get a certification, if I go out and get a degree, if I go out and do this thing, how can I demonstrate it before I go out and get a job? And this is where it's going to require work. But you're going to have to be a little crafty here. Maybe that means while you're working a job and getting the certification, you go out and work for free somewhere. You go out and take an internship somewhere. Why? So you can build that experience and so you can learn how to do it yourself. That way you can market yourself better. Because now if you want to go and get those top jobs, you want to go get a career that's going to pay you a lot more money, you got to be a lot more competitive. And in order for you to be more competitive, you have to show why you're better than everybody else applying. And when you have 100 applications for one job that's paying a lot of money, you got to be willing to do the other things that the other 99 are not. Because the employer is not going to pick the most average person out of the stack of resumes. They're going to pick the top person, or who they believe is the top person. So it's up to you to sell and show that you're the top person. And a lot of people think, well, if I can just get on a call, if I can get in this interview, I can show them that I'm going to do whatever it takes. They don't care about that. They want to see it. They don't want somebody who's going to come and learn on the job. That's too expensive, it takes so much time, and it's too big of a risk for the company, especially when you can just hire somebody that already knows how to do it. And this is where now, once you start getting the certification, look to see how you can get some more experience. Now, if you don't want to go work and do an internship for free, the next best thing is to do something on your own. Maybe you get a freelancing gig. Maybe you go out and create something yourself to practice this thing that you learned. Because there's a lot of different skills out there, but what you have to demonstrate to a company is that you know how to do this skill that the piece of paper has. And that's where, once you start doing this, you will have the ability in the next few years, because it's going to take you a few months to go through the education. And then it's going to take you a few months to actually apply it and get that experience. And then it's all about going out and getting the right job, getting the right career, which is going to take some time as well, right? This is not something that's going to happen tomorrow. But if you put in the work, like you're going to take that extra time to learn, you're going to take the extra time to actually put in the experience, in a few years, you can have a whole new career set with a whole new income and a whole new ability to put more money aside to get you to the $100,000 a whole lot faster. But it requires you to kind of take a couple steps back, because you got to invest some time and some money and some energy to learn. Then you got to invest some more time to get the experience. Then you got to get some more time to actually go out and find a new career. But if you're willing to put in that work, you're going to be able to see the big upside, because now you're going to be able to make more money every single year and have more money to invest, have more money to save, and of course, have more money to spend as well. And this brings me to the last step, the last way that I want to go over of how you can take this $10,000 and turn it into $100,000, which is actually building it. Now, this one is the most difficult. It's going to take the most time. It has the most risk, but it also has the most upside. And this is going to be for people that have that entrepreneurial bug. People that really love the grind. You know who you are. There are some people that are watching this that are going to say, I hate the idea of working. I just want to be able to chill. This is not for you. For those of you that say, I love the grind, but I want to have that potential. I want to have that reason. I want to have that kind of thing on the back end, that thing that I'm working towards. This is for you. Now, for the people that have that grind in them, that don't mind the grind, this is where now you can build something, whether it's your own business or a side hustle, because now you really have no scaling potential, no top limit potential. When you work a job, I don't care how much money you're making, I don't care what job you have, I don't care what career you have, there's generally going to be some sort of ceiling because you're working within the confines of a brand. Now, there are going to be some exceptions to this, but for 99% of people, there's going to be a ceiling as to how much money you make. When you own the business, there's no ceiling because now you're creating it, you're innovating it. But the problem is, the risk all falls back on you. If it doesn't work, you don't make any money. If it doesn't work, you got to pay all the expenses, and it all falls back on you. So now, the question is, what can you do to turn this $10,000 into $100,000? I'm not going to talk about what business you should start, because the people that are telling you got to start this business are generally selling you a course on some type of business idea, which, sure, if you want to learn how to do that, that's fine, and maybe that can take you to $100,000. But what I've seen is if you really want to build a real business, you got to think about the innovation and your skill set and your values and what value you can provide to the world. What are you good at? What do you like doing? And what value can you provide? What thing can you make easier for other people to serve the world and to serve your community and to serve your customers, and then build a business around that? So that's not what I'm going to talk about. Rather, I'm going to talk about more of the financial side, which is every business needs two things to make money. That's it. You really need to understand two things. Number one is you need a product to sell, and number two is you need customers to sell it to. If you have these two things, you can build a profitable business. If you only have one of these two things, you're not going to have a profitable business. If you have neither of these two things, you don't have a business at all. So once you figure out what it is that this business does, what it is that this business monetizes, maybe you bake cakes, maybe you sell an application, maybe you sell a Google Sheet, maybe you sell a software, maybe you sell, I don't know, your consulting, your time, your courses, whatever you sell, you have this thing that you sell. Now you know that. Now what you need is you need people to buy your stuff. And now it's just a math problem. How many people need to buy your stuff for you to make enough money to take you to the $100,000? What do you need to go to $10,000 a month? What do you need to go to $5,000 a month? What do you need to get to $1,000 a month? And now reverse engineer that. And this is where now, let's just do the math. If your goal is to make $100,000 a year, that's $8,334 a month. Now the question is, how many things do you have to sell to get you to $8,334 a month? Well, it depends on how much you're selling and what it is that you're selling. If you're selling something that's going to make you $1,000 per sale, that means for you to pass this $8,334 a month, you're going to have to make 9 sales, 9 customers a month. If you can make $500 per sale, that means you're going to have to make 17 sales a month. If you can make $100 per sale, that means you're going to have to sell 84 of those items every single month. And now you double that for here. If you can sell $50 per item, that means you're going to have to sell about 168 of those items every single month, 168 customers to take you to this $100,000 a year. Now, I know I'm talking about just gross revenue here, but this shows you what you have to do to get to this monthly number, which will take you to this yearly number. And the interesting thing here about your business is once you can get to this number, there's no reason why you can't add another zero to it. I mean, there's no reason why you can't take it to this, because now you've built the systems on how to get there, which means you could take this to, instead of $100,000 a year, to $1 million a year. But it starts with you figuring out those two things. What is the product that you're going to sell, and who are you going to sell it to? Once you figure that out, now it's all about scale, and then it's all about the other business side of things, which is now when you have these customers, can you sell them something else to make even more money on the back end? But I'm not going to get ahead of myself here. Let's start by taking the $10,000, getting it to $100,000. Once you get to the $100,000, now you start innovating to see how you can go from the 100,000 to the million. When it comes to the different topics of funds, you have 3 general categories of funds. You have mutual funds, ETFs, and index funds. And the 3 main things that you want to pay attention to when you're understanding the difference between these:
Assets only, no liabilities. Let's get this money, y'all.